Mhm.
So, welcome back to the Lift Your Life podcast. And I am back with a guest podcast today, and one that is a little bit different. It's not going to be necessarily for everyone in terms of the content, but I think everyone is going to benefit from this podcast in terms of definitely learning something. And ultimately, it's something that we're all going to experience, because I've got Adele on today. Now, Adele, like me, is a coach, but Adele has a very, very specific demographic of ladies that she worked with. So I'm going to let Adele talk first and introduce herself, tell us a little bit about who she is, what she does, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Lucy. And honestly, thank you so much for having me on here to talk about this topic so openly and relaxed as well. I think, I get a lot of questions coming through around menopause, perimenopause, what are the differences? How do I know if I'm menopausal? So I am a menopause coach. So certified nutritionist, certified positive psychology coach. I'm currently studying to be a breathwork facilitator. So I very much take a holistic approach and view to how I work in partnership with my ladies. I don't coach them and tell them what to do. It's more around building their individual tracks, because we all know that if you're listening to this and you are menopausal, it's not 2 days are the same. So you can wake up one day feeling quite energized, you're really motivated and focused. And then the next day, you literally do not want to face anybody. You just want to pull that duvet over your head and hide away. So I'm 38. I'm a mum of identical twin girls and a full-time menopause support coach, supporting ladies all around the world. I first got into doing this a few years back, and we can probably run through that if there's any specific need to find that out in more detail. So I've really been involved in this space for quite some time, and it's become a passion of mine, where establishing that there's not so much a grey area in women's menopause support, but more of this big black hole that we just don't have enough support around. So that's why I'm here today, so that we can at least get a little bit more awareness out there. And if something you can take away from listening to this today gives you that little tidbit of advice or a top tip that you can make your menopause journey a bit better, then I have done my job.
100%. And like I mentioned, because I sort of kind of hinting what you do, but I didn't want to say because I wanted you to drop it. We're all going to go through it at some point. The majority of us are going to go through this experience. So whether it's relevant now or not doesn't matter. Save this podcast, come back to it in 20, 30 years down the line, and then implement it then. But I am actually really interested to find out why you've got into this niche, why you become so passionate about the menopause. So when did this begin? Did you always sort of go into the industry wanting to support this, and then the online fitness came alongside that, or were you into fitness first? So how did it all sort of come together?
I suppose my journey to being a menopause coach, it originated, so I was working with just women in general around their health. I had a few different ladies with different types of goals. One was looking at just improving her health to try and become pregnant. Another was just wanting to lose body fat because she was so unhappy with how she looked and felt. And then I took on a new lady. She reached out to me, and she'd actually had medically induced menopause because of breast cancer treatment. So this lady had overcome a very aggressive form of breast cancer. She survived through that treatment, and she came out the other end not recognizing who she was because of the weight gain and the changes in her body due to the treatment. Long story short, we had a conversation. Now, I'm very much being an evidence-based nutritionist, and the way that I work, I'm very much in that integrity space. So I did say to her, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not here to be able to navigate you through cancer. But what I can do is help you to be the healthiest possible self that you can be. So we started to get to work, and the menopause symptoms started to become quite a challenge for her at points. That's when my journey into helping her started to open up the world of menopause. And I realized quite quickly that there's not any support for women really outside of medical support. So that's where I started to read regularly. I mean, you're talking about my nose was in research articles and books online, listening to every podcast possible to support her. And just through the work that we've done, I then established that actually through some simple steps, we can make a massive difference to our menopause experience. And that absolutely had to be shared with more women. So that's where it kind of started a couple of years back.
Yeah, that's really, really, really interesting, actually. And one of the reasons that I wanted to get Adele on as well is because I've become very, very passionate about female hormonal health. I've had some hormonal issues myself. If you've listened to the podcast, you will be an expert on all the things that happened to me this year. And I realized quite quickly that there was a lack of support for female hormones and female physiology. And I've had to basically do all the groundwork myself. And I'm fortunate that I've got people in my corner who could help and guide me, because from a professional medical level, it didn't help me at all. And the advice they gave me was all wrong. And when I started to put those messages out there on social media and did the podcasts and the YouTube videos, I had people reaching out to me about their issues. And a couple of women who did reach out to me were saying, obviously, I can't relate to you now, but I know I've gone through the change, or I've had this go on with my hormones and I'm just not getting the support or help. And I think it is quite a big issue because, like we say, the majority of women, whether it's medically induced or natural, will go through it. There's a small percentage of women who don't for other reasons. And I think it is very misunderstood, there isn't a lot of knowledge. And I think a lot of people do think that menopause is a total barrier for them able to achieve their health and fitness goals. As I was saying to Adele before the podcast, I've had quite a few women reach out to me for inquiries about coaching. I've just been discussing, what is your biggest sticking point? What's stopping you getting the results that you're wanting right now? And a lot of the older women I've spoken to have said, look, it's my age. I just can't lose the weight because I've gone through the change. It makes everything harder. And now what I wanted to bring Adele on more specifically today was to talk about how it is that you can actually still get great results, how you can look and feel amazing within yourself without menopause being a barrier. So I thought we'd break it down into just some sort of subtopics. I know you won't be able to give a full answer because every situation is different, but I'm sure you have some just generalized knowledge bombs, and you can overcome some myths and misconceptions for the listeners today, and just give people a bit of hope that age is not a reason to not be the person you want to be. So let's start with diet, because I think that is probably one of the main ones that people say, is that they just can't lose weight because of their age. And I think a lot of the things they think about is it's their diet and what have you. So if we start there, now I've heard multiple things about different changes that can happen in terms of sort of insulin sensitivity, and I'm not 100% sure what is fact and what is fiction, because you read something different everywhere. So I know it's quite an open and broad question, but I'm sure you can take us in direction. So in terms of diet, when it comes to, I'd say fat loss, because that is predominantly what women say they struggle with when it comes to menopause. What are some considerations that women should be taking if they do go through the change? Or are there any considerations, or is it all a bit mythological that you do have to make dietary changes?
I suppose in short, it is individualized. That's entirely true. I mean, we're all unique, beautiful beings, and not one of us is the same as the other. So when you talk about things like insulin sensitivity, we start to get into this world of, I've heard coaches blame insulin sensitivity for a lot of people's weight gain. Yeah. And in reality, Lucy, not a lot of people will experience insulin sensitivity in their life. Mm-hmm. We will experience metabolic adaptation. So our metabolism will change as we age. That is a natural aging process. It's not just in a menopause situation. So I think when we look at it this way, if you think about, there are 4 different stages within your menopause journey. So maybe if we talk about the pre-menopause stage, all right, pre-menopause is basically, you're not even aware what menopause is at that age. You're young, happy, single, probably living life, carefree. You're a teenager, you're in your 20s. You've not even really heard the word menopause. And if you have, it's because your granny or potentially even your mum has been experiencing some hot flushes and you're just like, oh my God, that's horrendous. But we're not educated on the menopause as we are on starting our periods, having a baby, contraception, and how not to get pregnant. We've got a lot of space and education there, but for some reason, we've failed to then have that next step in the education process of, maybe delivering that in high school before girls are leaving high school, to say, right, but there is a next step. There's a part where your periods will stop. Now, as the body naturally ages and our cells go through that aging process, our metabolism does slow down. Therefore, we don't need as many calories as what we've needed when we've been in our pre-menopause stage, as we then start to enter in, potentially for some women, their perimenopause stage, which is stage number 2. And that stage can hit at any age. So, you know, this is not an old lady thing that happens at the end of life. It's, you know, it's not an old woman thing. I started my perimenopause when I was about 36. The average age in the UK, just as a benchmark, is 41. But it doesn't mean that you won't start it earlier or later than that. So it's about, you know, be very much in tune with your body. And then menopause is stage 3. And that stage is literally where you've not had a period for 12 consecutive months. So no bleeds for a year. The next again day is your menopause day, and it's only one day. Then you're in stage 4, which is postmenopause. Now, it's that around that point that we start to notice that we could have a metabolic adaptation or a metabolic change of around about 200 to 300 calories less required for our body to thrive and function. We're not as active anymore. And that can come through a whole host of different debilitating symptoms for some ladies, from, yes, okay, the ones that we associate with menopause are those vasomotor symptoms like sweats, flushes, yeah, the things that we kind of think, oh yeah, mum's got the fan out again, she's too hot, right through to, you know, some ladies will have vulval and vaginal challenges where it can be swollen, sore, itchy, burning. So even putting underwear on can be excruciatingly painful. That lady is not going to get into a gym. She's certainly not going to attend, you know, a burpees class and start going hell for leather. It's too painful. And especially when estrogen levels drop, there are a whole host of different benefits for estrogen, but we can experience things like joint, bone, and muscle ache because it's a lubricant. Yeah. So as that decreases through our perimenopause, we can become quite stiff and sore. So again, jumping around in a class, in a HIIT class, or doing the things that we always used to do to lose weight, maybe isn't so much an option anymore. Okay. So removing that kind of myth that when you go into menopause, you automatically gain weight is not really true. Women will gain weight in their menopause because, yes, we have a metabolism slow down over time. It doesn't just happen overnight. But our body can be sore. Yeah. We can be so exhausted. It's not just I'm tired. It is debilitating fatigue where you could be literally needing a nap midday to survive the rest of the day at work. So you aren't going to feel energized and motivated come 6 p.m. at night and think, right, I've now got to go and do an hour in the gym or attend this class. So what happens is gradually over time, we reduce our output. So we aren't as mobile, we aren't as active, and we actually can increase our energy consumption in. So the foods that we eat, a lot of ladies through menopause will comfort eat, and, you know, unknowingly so, because they just feel a bit low. They just, you know, the changes can be quite upsetting for a lot of ladies. Yeah. And yeah, it's a whole different kind of environment then when we get there. So there's not one reason why we will gain weight. But you asked me about foods and things as well in this, so kind of optimal diet. Again, there's nothing that you need to be thinking, okay, when I hit menopause, I've got to stop eating that. Okay, when we strip back what food actually is, all food is energy. And our bodies survive and thrive on energy. And energy is also known as kcals, calories. So calorie is a unit of energy is a calorie. Yes, some foods are way more nutrient dense, so you'll carry more micronutrients like vitamins and minerals, but it doesn't mean you have to stop eating other foods. All right, and I think that's important because a lot of ladies will put pressure on themselves to do this. And if, you know, I fully appreciate on a podcast you can't see me, but let's do the inverted commas, clean whole foods. Yep. Yeah. Certainly a small caveat to that would be eating a good, healthy, higher fat diet will support. So things like oily fish, a whole host of benefits for that through menopause. Avocados, olive oils, these types of, nuts and seeds are very, very good over that period, because we need adequate fats, healthy fats in our body to regulate our hormones. They play a core role with that. But also we won't absorb our fat soluble vitamins if we've not got an adequate amount of healthy fats. So vitamin D, for example, a huge one for immune support. And we need that. Other things would be thinking about like the Mediterranean type lifestyle. So good amounts of oily fish, really good variety of whole grains, nuts, seeds, fruits and veg. And literally having that in your intake of food is going to support your body. Another kind of stipulation that I'll have a conversation with my ladies about is alcohol might not be your friend at certain stages in your menopause, right? What it can do is exacerbate some of those symptoms. And we can certainly see that it can have quite an impact on weight gain. So again, it might be that rather than say you can't have any alcohol, you maybe just limit some moderation, have maybe a glass at the weekend rather than all week. Spicy foods can exacerbate symptoms. Stimulants like alcohol and nicotine can really exacerbate symptoms. So what I would suggest with this is there's no menopause diet. Again, I'm doing that inverted commas thing. But certainly you can support your body through thinking Mediterranean style, healthy fats, good sources of protein intake. Maybe a rule of thumb would be 20 to 30 grams per main meal. And then you're hitting all the things your body needs across that space. So it's not complicated. You might just need to make some habit changes in how you currently eat.
For sure. I think a lot of those as well, if people can listen to this and actually start to implement, because a lot of those things that you said there, like in terms of oily fish regularly, higher protein intake, higher micronutrient intake, those are things that people realistically should, well, I'm not saying should, but ideally should in terms of having a healthy body be doing from the get-go. And I know that isn't the case. So if you're listening to this, save life and make things easier, start doing that now, because that will really, really help. There's so many benefits to doing that now rather than just waiting. But in terms of the benefit of doing that at that age, I know you're saying it's going to support the body. So can you kind of expand on what that, because I think people might be saying, well, yeah, it makes me healthy, but what is the benefit of having a diet like that at that age? I mean, obviously there's benefits to us now, but at that age specifically, what are the benefits of having those sort of foods in the diet in terms of, is it going to reduce symptoms? Is it just going to make you feel better? What are the benefits?
Yeah, all of the above. So again, if we think about this in context, our body thrives on the energy sources that we put into it, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't have your favorite takeout or pizza or, the things that we generally associate with, oh, I've not been very good. There's no such thing as being good or bad in the foods that you have. If you think about it as that energy usage, your body will use that energy and take out the good parts in terms of the nutrient value, and then expel the waste through your stools. The reason then that we benefit from this is because our body is already going through quite a lot of change. So we are starting to see, not just through aging, natural aging process, we are starting to see things like symptoms such as, the joint pains, and some ladies can experience things like heart palpitations, which can be quite fearing. It can scare them, quite frightening. You've got disrupted sleep patterns, which can then lead, when we've got ongoing disrupted sleep, can lead to your hormones leptin and ghrelin, which are your two main hunger regulator hormones, going a bit out of balance. So we might not then be fully aware of, am I hungry and am I full? Therefore, that comfort eating, that potential eating beyond fullness can become a challenge for a lot of ladies. The core benefits around our body is, if we think about it from a cellular level, if we've got a balanced intake of macro and micronutrients, so our proteins, fats, and carbs being our macronutrients, our micronutrients then being our vitamins and minerals, we can have the best intake of all of that. But if our gut health isn't optimal, we're not going to absorb what we need to absorb. So this is all about thinking of your body rather than, I just have to eat that because that will make me thin. It's more we have to basically bring in those really good ample amounts of macro and micronutrients so that our gut can thrive and survive. Our organs are healthy. The visceral fat that can sit around the organs, which is that internal fat, the dangerous fat, isn't really a problem. So we start to think about our body from the inside rather than the out. Healthy heart, healthy bones, all of these things help when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s to support your 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond body. So you're doing this for yourself now, because obviously the healthier that you can be, the better you're going to support your future self. But the hard and fast facts are that 1 in 3 women in menopause will develop osteoporosis. Okay, and the reason for this is not about the food that you're eating per se. It's because your hormones, estrogen and progesterone, take such a decline. And what can happen then is estrogen is needed to regenerate and rebuild bone and muscle and all the other good stuff. And if we don't have enough of that going on, then your body will prioritize and take the estrogen that's available for other bits because it's struggling. So the receptors are struggling to find the estrogen as it declines. We need it for our brain health. That's why cognitive slowdown can happen, memory and forgetfulness. There's also a heightened risk of Alzheimer's post-menopause. So again, things like estrogen are really protective around the brain health, the heart health, and osteoporosis can lead to osteofractures. And the unfortunate thing is with this one, Lucy, is a lot of ladies then that experience an osteo-related fracture, within 12 months, it can be fatal for them.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing in all of this, right? And I think that we need to just be very aware that because we don't see our bones, because we don't see our muscles on the inside, those fibrous and cellular levels of our body, we can be very forgetful that actually the outside is, yes, our skin, which we see every day, is our biggest organ on the outside of our body. But actually that's that protective barrier of everything inside.
Yeah. No,
So
and
we
that's
need
I
it
was
for.
going to ask you about the osteoporosis thing, because that's something I'm quite passionate about, and was again one of the reasons, because with my hormone issues in short, Adele, if you're not aware, I basically have had no hormones circulating. We don't really know what the cause is. No one's really found out, but it is what it is. And I got told April this year that I was basically on the brink of osteoporosis. I wasn't quite there, but it was that, I can't remember what the name of it is, but that one that's just above, very, very close. And someone at my age, I was terrified at my age and upset at my age, and it explains potentially why my strength in the gym and my muscular development within the gym wasn't as fast as it should have been, because obviously I haven't had the estrogen to rebuild the muscle that I was trying to build. I've been in deficits for long periods of time, so I've been fighting against the tide basically. But at my age, I was upset by that, and I thought, but I'm doing all of this resistance training as well, and that should be protecting. And to be fair, that's probably what has protected me from having all of these fractures, because I've managed to strengthen my bones through that. So coming on to that, I kind of want to talk about exercise. Now, I know you've mentioned that a lot of the symptoms that people can have can make exercise more of a challenge or make it a bit of a deterrent because they don't want to, because of the way they're feeling. Now, in terms of how can women who are passionate about exercise continue? And is there a style of exercise, potentially like resistance training, that you would say is of benefit, even if it's not that they want to do it, but knowing it from a health perspective, simply to help against some of the potential impacts of going through the change?
Yeah, so with those symptoms that we've kind of touched on, and the lack of motivation, the fatigue, all of these things, it's not that those ladies are choosing that. No. So I think when we and I'm doing this menopause certification in the new year to help other coaches to become fully alert and aware of how to work in the menopause support space. Because I think what the shocking thing is that I've heard so many ladies who reach out to me that are not in my client base, because I do support ladies that are not. They reach out and say, my PT or my coach has just said, basically, just put a foot up your butt and get out, you're being lazy. Don't be so lazy. You're not going to achieve your goals if you don't do it. Now, I think what can be quite narrow-minded in that space is when you're sore and you are physically sore, and just to help the listeners understand, I fully appreciate what it's like because I started my perimenopause at 36, now 38. It wasn't fully confirmed that I was in early perimenopause until just before my 38th birthday, when I then started on my HRT journey. So we can cover that off in another topic part here. But so I fully appreciate what it's like to have stiff, sore joints, to feel the aches and pains that you've not felt before, and to have such debilitating fatigue that you are taking lunchtime naps for 40 minutes to survive the day. So that example was actually mine. What we can do, however, is be fully aware that moving our body is vital. It's a non-negotiable, right? And that's where within my ladies' area, I will have days where they feel very motivated, days where they don't feel sore. And those are the days that we make sure that they do some resistance training. Now, you and I both know the benefits of resistance training. It's not just about the body composition, so the kind of look of the body. It's more about what we do with the bones, the muscle fibers, the tendons, how we strengthen all of that. We know that as human beings, our bone will break down and regenerate. That's how it stays strong. It's not the bone that we're born with isn't the same bone that we have now. It grows, it breaks down, it grows stronger. It's the same with your muscles. They will start to, over time, degrade and become a bit less full in volume. And that's known as sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is the wastage of your muscles. That happens with age. But actually, by you doing some resistance type training, and we're not talking Arnold Schwarzenegger style lifts in the gym, even body weight can be just as good for you, or some banded workouts at home if you don't want to step inside a gym, just as powerful. And it allows us to help those muscle cells and tissues to break down but regrow stronger. So we're very protective, and muscles protect the bone. So we need them for that reason. And then I think the other part to this is when the ladies wake and they don't feel their best possible self, rather than it being I'm not doing anything day, I have a couple of non-negotiables in how I coach, and one of them is Steps for Health. So every day we must move and we must get some fresh air outside. And if it's a particularly bad day, 10 minutes is better than no minutes. All right. But I know, and I'm sharing this with you, but don't tell anyone, that as soon as you get out for 10 minutes outside, you're going to go on. You're going to do a bit more than that. So that mindset of 10 minutes is better than no minutes is going to lead you to about a 20-minute to 30-minute walk. All right. And you're going to feel so much better for that. So even if you just do Steps for Health through your menopause, because you're sore and tired, is brilliant. One of the other things that I encourage my ladies to do is yoga.
Yeah.
All right. And the reason for that is that it's gentle, it's slow, it's stretching, and it's focusing on learning to control your pelvic muscle groups and your abdominal muscle groups, and breath. Breath is incorporated into that, which really helps with the mindset. So I basically will say to any personal trainer or coach out there, don't tackle your menopause lady as just drop and give me 20, let's bash out some burpees. And no, it can be quite dangerous and detrimental to their body if it's already sore. Boot camps and things like that might not now be adequate for them. So we just need to be very compassionate in the approach. And if you're listening to this thinking, oh God, I've not been doing anything, just hold yourself accountable to a 10-minute walk every day. Start there and then start exploring resistance training. And if you can do that, you're going to really protect your body now and in your 60s, 70s and 80s, and be thankful for it, trust me.
Yeah, it's one thing that I say to a lot of women. It was more when I was doing PT and they were sort of saying, oh, I don't want to go and do the weights and stuff. I just want to go do the cardio. And I was like, well, we're going to do some weights. I said, I'm going to tell you why we're going to do weights. I don't care if you don't want to look amazing, but we're going to do a bit of weights because in 20, 30 years down the line, when all of your mates are snapping left, right, and centre, and you've got 9 strong bones, you will thank me for it. And it was a bit of a joke I had, but it just got people thinking that there is more to weights and resistance training than just purely the outside physical appearance. And I guess it is the same in this instance, that resistant, doing a sort of exercise isn't, if it might not just be about wanting to drop a bit of body fat that you've put on in menopause, but looking at how it can protect you from the physiological changes. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm guessing mental health as well, because as the hormones decline, estrogen and progesterone, as we know, have massive impacts on sort of mood, motivation. And we know that just that short walk in itself can be something that can just lift your spirit. So I'm guessing from that perspective as well, the mental health benefits are huge. So I kind of want to come on, you just mentioned it yourself, onto sort of the medication side of things and supplementation side of things. Now, my knowledge on HRT is quite minimal. I was actually thrown on a HRT when I was 16, which I do actually think is a reason for my issues, because I basically had an eating disorder, was very underweight, had no periods. So instead of the logical steps of letting my body get to a healthier BMI, so to speak, using the inverted commas, the finger thing there, if you're not watching this and listening to it, they just threw me onto a HRT straight away. And I do actually think that may be one of the reasons why they've never been right since, because it's not something at 16 that you should really have, because it was quite an extreme dosage and level, but that's all I really know. But what I do have a little bit of knowledge on is more natural remedies, because I used to work in Holland and Barrett, and there was like a female health section, and it was things for menopause and things for sort of going through your menstrual cycle. So I've got a bit of knowledge there. So I'd kind of like to get your understanding and perception of both of these elements, the HRT side of things. Do you think it's good? What are the limitations? What are sort of the implications potentially? And also looking more at sort of natural holistic remedies as well, in your opinion on those. So let's start on the HRT side of things. So you can talk a little bit about yourself as well, because you mentioned going on to it as well.
Yeah, so I think there's this, so HRT being hormone replacement therapy. And actually, for some ladies, it is replacement, and for others, it's a bit of a top up. Yeah. We've also got TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. So again, it all comes into these hormones. And really what we're talking about is the 3 sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And a core fact around testosterone, because some ladies might listen to this and think, oh, why are we talking about that? That's for men. Women actually have 3 times as much testosterone in their body pre-menopause, so before our menopause, so in pre-menopause, perimenopause, then we do estrogen. And then post-menopause, it drops massively. And there's benefits of each of these core hormones. So testosterone will give us that, what I call our badassery as women. This is that va-va-voom, that really big motivation in life. It's not aggression in the form of you're going to pick fights and punch people. It's more aggression in the terms of I'm so aggressively in tune with me and my life right now and my ambition that you've just got this big, I feel amazing, and yes, I will take on that challenge. Yeah. It's also a core role player in things like our sexual function and libido, our mood. So all of these things can be massively impacted through menopause, not just because of the symptoms we're experiencing, but also because testosterone can take a massive decline throughout menopause as well. Then the other 2 that we're more so commonly aware of is estrogen and progesterone. Yeah, so estradiol, we've got 3 elements to estrogen. And if we think about breaking that down, we look at estradiol replacement when we talk about estrogen replacement. All right, so we don't replace the whole hormone, it's more estradiol, which is, for those of you that are familiar and know, the shortened term of that is E2. All right, so there's E1, 2, and 3. So, but basically what we do with that one, that hormone plays such a core role in so much around your body. You've got estrogen receptors literally everywhere. And this is why ladies can start to experience symptoms like tinnitus, dry eyes, bleeding gums or receding gums. You can maybe experience things like itchy skin where you've never had it before. If you're in the shower and you're washing your hair, you might have clumps of hair that come out that you think, Jesus, that's a bit, bit intense. And then you might not naturally put all of these symptoms together to think, oh, I wonder if it is perimenopause. I wonder if my hormones are declining. We can start to feel an array of symptoms that necessarily don't indicate until we put them all together that that's what it is. So a top tip for you here would be an invitation to download a free app called Balance. And that app has a whole host of menopause fact sheets and articles in there that you can read yourself. But it also has a symptom tracker. So you can start tracking what symptoms you're experiencing just by ticking little boxes. So all the symptoms are listed out. You can tick those boxes, and then you can do it as often as you want and run a report at the end, so that if you are wanting to seek medical support, you've got this report to show over time what your symptoms have been doing. All right, so that's a little top tip. And then progesterone as well, you know, this core hormone really, we need it predominantly to maintain a healthy uterine lining, so our womb. And it's basically there to help embryos grow within pregnancy. But obviously, as we start to go through menopause, that's our fertile years starting to end. So the kind of progesterone part of it is still required if you have a womb or a uterus. All right, and I think that's important because a lot of ladies who go through the menopause want to go through HRT. I've come across a number of ladies who have just been given estrogen only as their HRT because the GP just hasn't had the knowledge to understand that if she still has a uterus and hasn't had a hysterectomy or removal, then progesterone is required because estrogen can thicken up the lining of the womb, which, and you highlighted, you know, is there any risks to this? That is a risk if the lining of the womb over thickens, because it can, and I'm not saying will, it can increase the risk of cervical or you know, uterine cancer. So we need a progesterone to keep the lining of the womb thin. Yeah. So that's a point to note on there. I think one of the biggest things or myths, shall we say, or risk that people talk about out there is, but if I take HRT, am I going to get breast cancer?
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest ones. And that came around because of a study that was done over 20 years ago now by the WHI. Unfortunately, in short, that study, we'll just say, you know, non-correct or falsified information was leaked into the media. And if you go back and search WHI HRT, it will come up and show you that all of the kind of newspaper and media platforms started to host front pages saying HRT equals breast cancer, and a whole host of women stopped taking their HRT overnight. We then seen an increase of cardiovascular disease, of dementia-related disease, and we also seen a lot of osteoporosis start to happen after that. The whole really sad thing about it all is that the study itself wasn't great. Let's just say that. It's basically now since been reevaluated and kind of torn apart. And it was looking at an old form of HRT, which was made from horses' urine. We don't use that HRT now. Okay, the HRT that we use now is body identical. So it mimics those hormones that are your body's hormones. Mm-hmm. And it's predominantly made from yam plants. So it's soy-based. All right, so these hormones play a core role. And forms of HRT that we have, with an estrogen, there's quite a lot of options. So you've got a gel that you apply to your inner thigh or your inner arm. You've got a patch that you can stick to your buttocks, and that can be replaced anything from 3 days up to a week, depending on your dose. We do have things like an implant, but they're not as common. All right, normally we would look to do transdermal application because it does reduce any type of risks of things like clots, because we're then taking in an oral version, there's a little bit more that it kind of passes through your organs in your body. So transdermal, it just enters the bloodstream through your skin barrier. Yeah, there is oral versions like I suggested, there's a spray. So there's a whole host of different options for estrogen. You just need to find what works best for you through trialing treatment. All right. And this is where HRT is not just a box of pills that every woman will get the same thing of. It is what your body needs for you. And part of it is about trialing. Do I need 2 pumps of the estrogen gel, or do I need 3 or 4? Do I need a patch and some estrogen gel? This is about what you connect in with your body feeling its best self. Progesterone, we've got the Mirena coil, which gives off a synthetic form of progestogen. And people will say, oh, but synthetic, that's not very good. But when we think about the Mirena coil itself, it's beneficial for a lot of ladies because it also provides contraception. Okay, so again, just because you're going through menopause doesn't mean you can't get pregnant. You absolutely still can. And it also releases a small amount of a progesterone into the uterus lining. So we don't have it going through our whole body, it's just in situ where we need it. You can also get a progesterone in an oral form and combined as estrogen and progesterone together. So there's a whole host of different options available. And then finally, testosterone. So you can get, at the moment in the UK, it is very difficult and challenging to get testosterone prescribed. You may have a doctor who understands and does it. You may not. You may find yourself needing to go privately for that element of your HRT if you need it. But again, very much like your estrogen and progesterone, it's a topical form, transdermally applied, either in gel or cream.
What are your thoughts then on sort of more the herbal remedies, more as, I'm guessing, not as a replacement, but as a support? So what the main things that we sold that people swore by, whether it was placebo or not, I'm obviously not sure, were sage for hot sweats and flushes, and there was another one, black cohosh it was, just for general symptom reduction. So what are your opinions on using sort of, obviously I know everyone is different, but generally going to these sort of herbal remedies as sort of additional support, or maybe other things that you've heard work? It may not necessarily be sort of capsule pill based, just for people out there who maybe want to sort of broaden their horizons as well.
So yeah, and this is it. I mean, I work with a couple of ladies who opt to do the alternative therapies route. And I think, you know, a disclaimer on all of this, yes, I take HRT, I replace my hormones because I'm so young, and knowing the risks that are associated with such a decline in hormones, I'm not willing to take that risk of, we have dementia in our family. My mum's mum died for that. And it's the most horrific disease that I've ever witnessed. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And I went for the Mirena coil. And again, as a contraceptive, the gel testosterone and the gel estrogen. So that's what I do. And I'm very open and honest with my ladies, because I am not, and this is where I give this disclaimer, I am not biased towards one or the other. This has to come from a place of education and awareness. So I will help my ladies to be aware of what is HRT, what are the benefits, are there risks associated for them, are there options that they want to try. And then if they say, Adele, I really don't want to do it, I want to go down the alternative therapies route, then we go down the alternative therapies route. And when we think about alternative therapies, this is everything from moving your body, right? That's super important. So lifestyle and movement plays a role. Your nutrition plays a huge role in alternative therapies. But also when we think about things like, sage, for example, you mentioned that. I've got a lady that I work with who swears by it. And it had been working for her for a long time for the vasomotor symptoms of sweats. And then as her hormones have taken another decline, it's now not effective anymore for her. So there's no harm in herbal remedies. There's no harm in supplementations. But one thing that I will make very clear is you cannot replace your hormones without hormone replacement therapy. So you can't eat your hormones back. You can't supplement your hormones back. But if you choose, or you are aware that hormone replacement is not for you, whether through choice or medical reason, then this is where you can help yourself with some supplementations. But what I would always say first off is, number one, you must address your nutrition. All right, so that's an absolute core. Number 2, you must address your lifestyle. So making sure that you are doing everything you best possible can for your body through what you eat and how you move. Right? You're mentioned about mental health and mindset. So vastly important. So number 3 is mind. And then we start to look at, right, well, what supplements are going to support me right now? And there's no hard fast rule with this, but what I would say as a bit of a blanket approach is vitamin D or D3 is a supplement because of the immune support that brings. Okay, so vitamin D is a no-brainer. We are normally, if you are listening to this and you're in the UK, we are normally a very highly deficient nation in vitamin D because we predominantly get the majority of it from the sun, and we're not the most sunniest of climates. So again, please supplement with that. I personally supplement all year round. I supplement my children, and all my ladies supplement all year round.
Yeah.
All right. If you're not eating 2 portions of oily fish per week, please supplement with an omega-3 that contains EPA and DHA. Important that you check that. Okay, you get a lot of fish oils out there that are just not very beneficial. So vitamin D, omega-3 with EPA and DHA. Now, when we start to then think about menopause, what can also support ladies is a magnesium supplement in the evening. Magnesium glycinate is normally, there's so many magnesiums, but glycinate is normally the one that I will navigate more towards because it does not have a heavy laxative effect. If you've got ladies who are constipated, then we would normally tackle that through their diet, so fibrous intake, water and fluids. So glycinate, magnesium glycinate in the evening can help your sleep. All right. Other things to consider would be if you are experiencing quite a lot of anxiety, heart palpitations, just that overwhelming feeling of doom. That's, you know, it's a symptom. I'm just overwhelmed by a sense of doom. Everything's going to go wrong. A lot of ladies can experience health anxiety. So where they've never had health anxiety before, they start to think, oh God, I'm going to get cancer. Oh, I'm going to end up developing this. I'm going to have that. What if I have a heart attack? You know, what if I die tomorrow? This starts to become a symptom of menopause. So ashwagandha KSM 66. This is another one that it's not a blanket approach, but I have a few of my ladies that use ashwagandha. And again, whether it be placebo or whether it be real life evidence-based, there's a lot of really good human evidence around ashwagandha use for lowering cortisol and just helping to bring back that kind of back to center equilibrium of just feeling better, feeling more relaxed.
Yeah. Amazing.
So these are all things. So vitamin D, omega-3, magnesium glycinate, ashwagandha KSM 66, and potentially a B12. So again, depending on your dietary intake, if you're a vegan, then B12 is an absolute must.
Beautiful. That's covered everything absolutely amazing. So I think that's a really nice place to wrap it up, to be fair, because you absolutely covered loads there. Before we sort of wrap things up, is there anything that you want to say that you feel that you've not said that is an important take home, or do you think you've covered all of the bases?
I think the only thing I would say is if you are thinking, you know, what the hell is the menopause though? What does it do? We've talked a lot on kind of how we can help.
Yeah.
I think I would end it by saying the menopause isn't an old lady thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a hormone deficiency that carries health risks. So being fully aware of that, my encouragement to you would be, if you've got this preconception that, but you know, if the body meant for us to lose our hormones and we're meant to go into the menopause, then why do we not just let that happen? There are some ladies in this world who will just, and there's no judgment on this, okay? There are ladies who will allow themselves to just navigate through the menopause, struggle through the symptoms, and, you know, lead a less than optimal sense of life. But if you are not, and you want to live life to the fullest, and you want to be, you know, ailment free, and you want to really, you know, use that life currency that we get, that time.
Yeah.
That's one of my core values, time and life currency. Then there are things you can do that you don't have to accept that, well, you know, I'm older, I'm going through the menopause. There are ladies as young as 13 that have gone through the menopause. and some ladies will navigate through into their 60s and think, I don't think I've gone through the menopause, because they don't get impacted. So be in tune with your body, be aware of change, track the symptoms in the Balance app. It is free. It's not my app, so I don't benefit from this. I'm giving you a gift of awareness, and just be really connected with yourself, knowing that there are HRT options and alternative therapy options, depending on your own needs, your wants, and how you kind of want to navigate your menopause. But it will happen to every woman. It will. It's not something that might happen, unlike diabetes or, thyroidism. This will happen.
Yeah.
And it can happen at any age. So just being aware of it is going to set you, a leap ahead of where most women are in today's society in the year 2021.
Perfect. And this leads nicely on to, I was going to say, Adele, where can people find you? Because I would honestly, and I say this on every podcast, go give them a follow, but genuinely do, because Adele puts out absolutely loads and loads and loads of free content on the daily. And it's valuable for raising awareness, because I think if you Google menopause and what have you, the information out there is very vague, is very just blanket textbook. It's the same on every single Google page. Whereas I find that pages like Adele, where it's someone who is so passionate, it just gives you so much more to learn about, much more in-depth little knowledge bombs like you find on this podcast that you don't find on Google without having to go through research papers and what have you. So definitely go give her a follow, because if you're not going through it now, the education you will have that you can relay on to family and friends or have for yourself is invaluable. So Adele, on that note, where can people go find you?
Thank you, Lucy. So really active on Instagram, share a lot of free stuff on there. I've just done a guide yesterday on testosterone. And you can get me there, just Adele.Johnson.
Yeah.
Or if you jump into Google and just put Adele Johnson Coaching, it will bring up all the other platforms that I'm across, including my website, where you can email me from there.
Perfect. Definitely go check her out, guys. Honestly, so much valuable content, and it's lovely that you just you post so much out there for free, because it shows a real passion for what you do, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. So thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing, and I've learned so much. I'm sure the listeners have as well. And to everyone who has listened to this, thank you. Please go check Adele out. Please go just support her, drop her a message and just say, thank you for sharing this amazing information, because it has been invaluable. So thanks, Adele, and I shall see everyone on next week's episode.